Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your MC for the evening, host of the Lang and O'Leary Exchange, best-selling author and CBCs, and one of Canada's leading business experts, Amanda Lang.
Well, some of that was true. Good evening and welcome to the StFX National Dinner. It's time to welcome our head table guests for the evening. They'll be led in tonight by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Color Guard and by world champion piper and StFX grad Andrea Boyd, your head table. Ladies and gentlemen, your head table. And so now formally, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries, honored guests, and the rest of you. The StFX National Dinner is always a special evening. It brings together in this rare combination national and global leaders. And tonight we're honored to have with us hundreds of successful leaders, and again, the rest of you. With us tonight, we have a former Prime Minister, former Premiers, current and former members of Parliament, senators, leaders of industry, leaders in health and academia, and more. We are missing one leader this evening, who, while small in stature, always made his presence in a room known. And I know I'm not alone in saying that I feel the absence of Jim Flaherty keenly. I don't think he would have appreciated a moment of silence, so I'm going to ask you to give him a round of applause instead. The theme this evening is leadership, and leadership is the cornerstone of StFX University. It is one of Canada's great universities, as you know, and it has produced an outsized number of leaders in politics and the economy. Alumnus Frank McKenna described the school as one of a cauldron of leadership that punches above its weight level. It's a national university with students and alumni from across Canada, but also from around the world. It has high academic standards, it has an incredibly beautiful residential campus, and it has an amazingly strong spirit that you feel in the alums that you meet. It has an unparalleled student experience that is 160 years old now, and has helped shape the minds of so many Canadians, and through the StFX Coady International Institute, helped millions of people in the developing world as well. StFX has a culture of educating students, not just with all of the tools they need for their own lives, but with a sense of social responsibility to make the world a better place. Now, there is no doubt, you only have to look around the room, of its ability to turn out students with a great capacity to lead and potential to do many things, and there are many in this room that fall into that category. And now more than ever, I think you'll agree, we need universities in this country that are capable of doing that. Now, the fact that there are so many alums here guarantees that this is a fun night, one that will be longer for some than others. You know who you are. I'm going to ask Taylor Mason to join us now to give thanks before the meal. Taylor is the Vice President of the StFX Students' Union and is finishing a Bachelor of Arts in Aquatic Resources, a student leader. She's an impressive young student who graduates soon, and I'm told has her resume with her. Taylor?
Thank you, Amanda. And I do indeed have a stack of resumes over at table 9 if anyone is willing. We gather here this evening to celebrate whatsoever things are true, good, and just, according to the motto and tradition of StFX University. We give thanks for the friends who gather here this evening, and we ask God to grant us peace and blessing upon the food and drink. Amen. Enjoy your meals.
Recognized as one of Canada's top university presidents, StFX President Shawn Riley is stepping down after 18 years. Now we have special tributes to Dr. Riley, but before we get there, I want to recognize Dr. Riley's successor, the next president of StFX University, Dr. Kent MacDonald. Dr. MacDonald, can you stand and be recognized, please? I know you're all looking forward to tonight's keynote speaker, the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney, who among his many accomplishments is also a graduate of StFX. The theme of leadership tonight is an important one, and it's one that I've thought a lot about in the context of education and universities, because like many of you, I'm worried about the Canadian economy as it unfolds in the future. I'm worried about whether or not we're equipping young people with the skills and tools that they need for an increasingly complex world. And universities are increasingly becoming degree-granting machines. We've made degrees the table stakes in the jobs market. It's something kids have to get. And for far too many of them, it's simply what they're doing there. And I hate to say it, but the higher the caliber of the university, the more Ivy League, the more often that is the case. The degree they get from a Columbia or a Harvard is a way stop on their way to something else. We can't afford for that to be the case. I think we all know that we no longer live in a linear world, we no longer live in a straightforward one, and that if Canada is going to continue to do what it's done so well for a couple of centuries, which is also punch above its weight level, have a place of stature in the world that we don't really deserve based on our size or our scale, but that we earn because of our courage and our character, because of what we're willing to do. If we're going to continue to live in that kind of country, I think we also know we're going to have to equip our young people with a new set of skills. And so educators that understand that the information is still important. We don't want a nation of plumbers. We do need people that understand that learning for learning's sake is important and that the actual information matters. But we also need kids that know how to learn, that know how to reason, that know how to use their brains to tackle complex problems. And places like StFX will get us there. Under the guidance of people like Dr. Riley, these are universities that understand how to make both of those work and turn out kids that understand how to acquire information as they move through life, which they're going to have to do at a pace that, frankly, we did not have to. So, to me, it's actually a sign of great hope and optimism that we have schools like this in this country, and it makes me feel, frankly, better about our prospects and our future, that we can have graduates like the ones that come out of StFX. I think many would agree that Shawn Riley's leadership was transformational for StFX, and I'm honored now to welcome to the stage the former president of another small Canadian university, the University of Toronto. Robert Prichard, as president, helped transform that school. He made U of T one of the world's great research-intensive universities and, frankly, raised its stature in the globe, and as such, raised the stature of the country along the way. His leadership achieved so much on his own, and like great leaders, the legacy and momentum of that continues today. Please join me now in welcoming Rob Prichard.
Prime Minister, ministers, Premier Peterson, Chairman Wallace, President Riley, Amanda, friends. Shawn Riley steps down this summer after a scintillating and enormously successful 18-year run as president of your university. I'm honored to have been invited to pay tribute to him on behalf of current and former leaders of Canada's colleges and universities. This distinguished son of StFX, class of '74, has served with great distinction, and it's right that we honor him tonight. I'll confess at a personal level, this is a pretty heady experience to be invited to address the famous national dinner of the great St. Francis Xavier University, surrounded by so many accomplished ex-men and ex-women. It's actually the closest I've ever been to StFX, never having been invited to the campus, and never having attended a StFX event before. I feel a bit faint. I'm well known to be a proud booster of the University of Toronto as a great university, but I have never been reluctant to acknowledge that StFX is Canada's best university in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. To be in the company of such loyal and proud graduates as StFX is a special experience, and I thank you for it. Shawn came to StFX as your 17th president in 1996 with a glittering record of lifetime achievement, winner of the Governor General's Gold Medal for highest academic standing at StFX class of '74, recipient of the Larkin Trophy as the outstanding male student, named as StFX Male Athlete of the Year in 1974, awarded a Rhodes Scholarship at Oxford where he earned his doctorate in international relations, service in the Government of Canada in external affairs, in finance, and in the Privy Council office, the three most prestigious assignments in the federal public service, followed by a very successful stint in finance with National Bank and in business as CEO of Boulanger Laminates. And then he came home to StFX at the age of 42 to make a fine university even better. And did he ever? Wonderfully prepared by his experiences in education, government, and business, armed with a national and international perspective, fueled by a deep commitment to StFX and its distinctive history and mission, and guided by a passion and understanding only a graduate could possess, Shawn got about building StFX for the 21st century. What a legacy he leaves. A rebuilt campus with 8 new buildings and $250 million of infrastructure renewal that are the envy of universities many times their size. 5 first-place rankings in Maclean's annual survey of undergraduate universities, a vibrant brand known across Canada and internationally, new centers of excellence, including the McKenna Centre for Leadership, complementing the historic and thriving Coady Institute, new legions of supporters with names like Schwartz, O'Regan, Keating, and others, and a proud and loyal alumni championing the university coast to coast and around the world. This is a stunning record of achievement. Even more importantly, for 18 years, he has focused on the students, ensuring each of them receive the distinctive and special undergraduate experience that is the foundation of StFX renown. Let me dwell on this point for a moment by invoking the student voice. When Shawn announced that he was standing down, the StFX Students' Union issued an open letter to the student body. In many, perhaps most circumstances, such a letter would claim that the departure came none too soon, would include faint, if any, praise, and would go on to demand that the next president be a good deal better than the departing one, and that the student should have a large say in choosing him or her. Not in Shawn's case. Let me read from that open letter to the campus. Dear students, Dr. Riley has represented the student body as president since 1996. He has raised the reputation of StFX and moved the university to provide a premier undergraduate experience, both within the classroom and out. Dr. Riley has been instrumental in providing an extremely open and inviting campus. From the moment that students walk on campus and shake his hand during Welcome Day to the moment they cross the stage on graduation, Dr. Riley has made it his personal mission to interact with every student that has attended StFX under his then 17 years as president. We want him to know that he's changed the lives of tens of thousands of students and will be greatly missed. We will always save you the first run on the Jell-O slide whenever you can stop by. Sincerely, the St. FX Student Union. What a letter and what a tribute. Where were those students when I was leaving office? And why doesn't U of T have a Jell-O slide, whatever the heck that is? Distinguished as Shawn's service at St. FX has been, he's also made a major contribution to advancing Canadian higher education and research. As one of Canada's longest-serving university presidents in the modern era, Shawn has had a sustained positive impact on the national scene. Within the Association of Universities and Colleges of Canada, Shawn twice served on the board of directors and served at different times on the three principal committees, funding, research, and international relations, that guide AUCC's work. But he did more than just serve, he led. He was instrumental in making the case for increased investments in higher education and research, and he was critical in bridging the differences between the large research universities and the smaller, primarily undergraduate universities. Shawn knew that a rising tide could help all of us, and if we were united, and he led in forging the judicious compromises that allowed us to march arm in arm in common cause. Shawn also supported peer review and open competitions instead of political influence as the basis for allocating scarce funds. This principled stand, coming from a president who would have prevailed whatever the rules, endeared him to academic leaders from coast to coast. For his outstanding efforts, Shawn can rightly claim co-authorship of the great resurgence of federal investments in higher education and research over the past 15 years. In sum, Shawn's record as president is an exemplary one. He will be much missed and a very, very hard act to follow. Fortunately, Mark Wallace, as the university's chairman, skillfully led the search committee that chose Dr. Kent MacDonald, who you met just a few minutes ago, to take the helm this summer. It's a brilliant appointment. If anyone can match Shawn's record, it will be Kent. He, like Shawn, is a distinguished son of St. FX with an exceptional record of experience and success in academic leadership. Having experienced it himself, he knows St. FX and its mission well, and I have every confidence he will take your university from strength to strength. I'm not alone in recognizing the quality and importance of Shawn's leadership. He received our nation's highest honor in 2012, appointment to the Order of Canada, in recognition of his outstanding service to the nation. That says it all about Shawn as a Canadian leader of the first rank. The most important test for me of a university leader is whether he or she leaves the institution stronger and better than when he or she arrived, more fully realizing the full possibilities of its mission and promise. Dr. Shawn Riley has met this test in spades. He has well earned his place in the pantheon of St. FX leaders, that he has done so with great determination and personal courage when faced with adversity, qualities richly shared by his wife, Catherine, to whom I send our collective best wishes, underlines just what a special leader he is. Shawn has made his university, your university, the cause of higher education in Canada itself, stronger and better through his remarkable service. I salute Shawn on a great run and invite all of you to join with me in congratulating him. Congratulations, Shawn.
Thank you so much for that, Rob. We're not quite finished yet. Dr. Riley's vision was made possible by many donors and friends that support the university, but it's also made possible through the help of government. And leading that charge, a great friend of St. FX, its Member of Parliament, who's gone to bat for the university and helped with many projects that help students, the region, and the university itself. And so now it gives me great pleasure to introduce, please join me in welcoming, the Federal Minister of Justice, the Honourable Peter MacKay.
Well, thank you very much, Amanda, Prime Minister Mulroney, Premier Peterson, my colleague from Ottawa, the Honourable Lisa Raitt McCormick, who's here, and so many distinguished ladies and gentlemen and St. FX alumni and those who wish they were St. FX alumni. Amanda, I guess you and I are probably the only ones in the room that don't have that famous X ring. It's a real honor for me to be here, and in particular to share such distinguished company and pay tribute to two very extremely distinguished Xaverian alumni who we'll be hearing from tonight. This national dinner for St. FX University is such a great celebration that brings people together from right across the country. And we in Atlantic Canada perhaps are blessed with a dearth of wonderful universities and education facilities. As Amanda has alluded to, this is really one of the great strengths that we enjoy in Atlantic Canada, St. FX being the jewel in that crown. I came to public office about the same time that Shawn Riley arrived as president at St. Francis Xavier, so I had a unique vantage point from which to see the incredible leadership and work that he did on behalf of St. FX. And the theme of this year's dinner, Celebrating Global Leadership, is a fitting honor to the two individuals who we'll be hearing from tonight, as well as a reflection on St. FX alumni and impact around the country, but internationally as well. Across Canada, our academic institutions, our universities, colleges, and polytechnics play an important role in shaping the minds and abilities of future generations. And as such, the very country that we're fortunate enough to call home or be privileged to have moved. And it is on those university campuses and community college campuses where education really begins to flourish. And as John Dewey said, education is not preparation for life, education is life itself. And I know we all deeply believe in the power of education, that it has to drive our youth to achieve greater potential and prosperity and to move society itself forward. Rooted in this belief is the importance of quality institutions, of which St. FX has set a very high bar by any measure. And it's not an understatement to say, whether you're alumni, member of the faculty, or part of the broader community, that this university, Xaverians themselves, have had an overwhelmingly positive impact on the country and the world in which we live. And ladies and gentlemen, it's not simply nostalgia, fond memories of teachings of years on the campus, or the friendships that transcended time. Studies have consistently placed St. Francis Xavier University at the top of all national and international rankings. And as Mr. Prichard alluded to, by any scale, whether it was the #1 ranking in academic reputation, which it has enjoyed some 5 times by Maclean's magazine, it remains by far the strongest alumni network in the country, if not the world. These X rings seem to show up everywhere. And having the highest student engagement in Canada, and perhaps this is one of the great tributes to St. FX, is the incredible affection that people feel at the mere mention of the words St. FX. And home to 7 Canadian National Research Chairs, approximately $200 million during Shawn Riley's tenure that has been attracted to the infrastructure of the university itself. These are all incredible statistics, but they really don't tell the story of the people and the quality of life that students enjoy at St. FX. And perhaps no one has had a more profound impact on that quality of life than the honoree that we're celebrating here tonight. Shawn Riley has had a great deal of remarkable impact, and his exceptional leadership is being celebrated here. And he has that incredible quality of approachability that is undeniable, whether he is in the heads of corporations, other presidents, university offices, or at the wheel, or perhaps Piper's Pub, or kicking a soccer ball on one of the pitches on the campus. Shawn Riley has had an enduring impact on the lives of so many. And he did it during his student years, as was mentioned, but he certainly culminated his love at St. FX during his time as president, which is now coming to an end. And I dare say he will be one of the most celebrated and cherished presidents that St. FX University has or will ever have. One walk around the campus will show you immediately the impact that he has had. And I was proud to work with him on countless occasions to help bring support to the campus for various projects that he spearheaded, including the Schwartz Center, including the new field facilities that are there, and more recently working with Shawn and Dr. John Gaventa for support for the Coady Institute, the international institute that again projects St. Francis Xavier's influence around the globe in many developing countries. And in order to learn and to bring that knowledge back to homes and communities, the Coady, again, strengthens St. FX influence in so many communities in the world today. All a great example of the international reach and the leadership exhibited by men like Shawn Riley and by another speaker who we will hear from in a moment. I know that Shawn traveled tirelessly during his tenure as president, always in the best interest of St. FX. And perhaps most telling, as was again already alluded to, was the incredibly high regard with which students hold Dr. Riley in their hearts. As president, it is often seen as a position that is detached and distant from the student body. Dr. Riley has consistently been both accessible and inclusive to his student body throughout his entire tenure. And I have no doubt that it was this connection that he had and that he felt genuinely with students that shaped the policies that were front and center during his leadership, and that he truly made St. Francis Xavier University Canada's premier undergraduate experience. Dr. Riley, I thank you for that remarkable example that you gave to all of us, that you gave certainly to the students, and for all that you have done for St. Francis Xavier. And I know that you will have a long and happy retirement, and our thoughts and prayers are certainly with you and your wife at this time. It's so wonderful to be here with so many people who hold you in such great affection and esteem. I'm going to say just a very brief word about the other speaker tonight. I've had the incredible experience of now being with him 3 times at 3 events in less than a week, which tells me that I should be working a little harder, I guess, as an elected politician. There are some nominations coming open, sir, if I don't want to start any rumors here this evening. You are another extremely distinguished leader, and perhaps the most well-known St. Francis Xavier graduate. I have been blessed to have known the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney as a family friend and mentor for many years. And he has told me on a number of occasions, including recently at a speech in New Glasgow, how his years as a student at St. Francis Xavier played a significant role in preparing him for all future endeavors. He shared some of those memories very recently with students when he went back to the campus at St. FX. And it was there as a young man in his formative years where Mr. Mulroney first involved himself in politics. Little old Antigonish, where he made the personal and professional connections that continue to exist to this day. And most importantly, perhaps, developed the skills and confidence that would set him on a path that would allow him to succeed in his legal, corporate, and political career as one of Canada's greatest prime ministers. And after graduating from St. FX, he set forth on a career that not only changed the face of Canada, but also impacted on the world that's still being felt today. In my opinion, there are few who exemplify leadership more than the Right Honourable Martin Brian Mulroney. Leadership is that ability to inspire, share a vision, and mobilize people around a common goal. And it often involves spending political and personal capital in pursuit of worthy causes, what you principally believe is right, despite the cost. In his almost 10 years as Prime Minister, arguably he did more for this country than anyone had before him. And through his efforts to modernize the Canadian economy, reduce our debt and deficit, and pursue free trade and acid rain treaties with the United States, making difficult decisions to solidify our Canadian Constitution, and asserting leadership on the international stage as well, all well documented, all recently celebrated during the celebration of life of President Nelson Mandela in recognizing his lead on the world stage to end apartheid in South Africa. And in Canada, we are still seeing and living daily with the positive impact of those decisions. They have improved Canada's reputation in the world, made our economy more competitive, and created millions of jobs along the way. And I dare say, and I think there are few who could disagree, that recent trade agreements built on a solid and substantial foundation that was laid by Mr. Brian Mulroney. And I'm sure he will tell you, as he has told others, how proud he is to be a St. Francis Xavier alumnus, and it was his time there that shaped his remarkable life and his leadership ability. It's safe to say that Brian Mulroney and Dr. Shawn Riley and Lisa Raitt and Dr. Ken MacDonald have all gone out into the broader world armed with the best education they could have possibly received and the best on-campus experience available anywhere in Canada. It pains me as an Acadia grad to say that. I had to get that out of the way. In closing, as a Member of Parliament for Central Nova, I'm immensely proud of the contributions that St. Francis Xavier has made not only to Antigonish, to the broader community of Northern Nova Scotia, our province, our country, and the world. It is a true incubator of caring, compassionate, and successful people. Its ability to shape the lives of future leaders makes it one of our country's greatest assets. And I'm pleased that dinners like this will continue to celebrate and expand the university's reach and influence and support its continued success. I thank you so much for the invitation to be with you. It's been my great pleasure. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Minister MacKay. Before we bring Dr. Riley to the stage, I'm going to ask you to turn your attentions to the screens for a short video.
First met Shawn Riley in the early 70s when he was a student at StFX, and I guess my first impression when I met him was that this is someone who is really a very special person. He's someone on the go, and he's going to do great things with it.
I remember my first homecoming at StFX. Our whole residence was outside taking a massive group photo, and Dr. Riley was driving by, and he saw us, immediately stopped his car, hopped out, got in the group shot with us, and I remember feeling so blessed at that moment to be part of the Xaverian family.
When you think of generations of students whose experience at StFX and among their best memories is the relationship with the president, that's really quite something.
In business, we always learn about transformational leaders. And Dr. Riley's positive energy just affects everyone on campus to the point where it's almost contagious.
He was really, his legacy is felt really in every corner of the university campus. He has been, I think, the right person at the right time for the right school to be a university president. And he certainly has revitalized the campus and created an infrastructure that really has ensured the sustainability of the university going forward. And it's an infrastructure that really supports the academic mission of the university so that we can continue to grow as a university of excellence.
From new buildings to building such an exceptional academic experience, he's really changed the school from the inside out. And he's a great dad.
I think Dr. Riley's legacy goes beyond the buildings, beyond the national recognition, beyond the idea of the school punching above its weight. I think in many respects, he has taken the words "for a small school" out of the conversation when we think about ourselves.
The inspiration he provided to all of us on the outside, Frank McKenna and me and so many others, the faculty, the staff, and principally the students, and the high-quality students that St. FX was able to attract and continue to attract over his time in office.
For me, it's his relationship to students and how I know he's always there for us whenever we need him, and I think he shows that each and every day.
It is Dr. Riley's commitment to leadership and commitment to the success of every student that will be his biggest legacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shawn Riley, President of St. FX.
Thank you, Amanda. It's a local cheer. Thank you, Amanda, for being so generous to us, and I especially want to thank Rob Prichard. After he had retired from U of T, he came back to give a motivational speech to the presidents at a AUCC meeting. And he gave a real good motivational talk, including his expression, "You cannot exaggerate too much." If the president isn't exaggerating, who will? I would also like to thank Peter MacKay. We have had a real synergy. Peter has been an absolute Trojan for St. FX, and I endorse that. But tonight I'm happy to be with you, St. FX alumni, friends of St. FX, and some people are just getting to know us. I am particularly happy to be with Dr. Kent MacDonald. Where's Kent? Again. Come on, let's give him a big... You got to get used to it, Kent. You're shy, but not that shy. But I'm going to enjoy this evening for many, many reasons. Only I hesitated when I looked at the speaking list and saw Honorable Prime Minister, and I read it. It sounds like I'm starting a campaign for the Senate. Now, if you're in this world, you know it takes a legion of people to make an institution a success, from the students to the faculty, the staff, everything from the classroom to athletics and student services. But it's one thing to say about it. We all have to respect and adore our boards of governors and our alumni. And there are many members of the Board of Governors here with us tonight, and some members of our investment committee. It's not well known, but we manage our own endowment, and we are consistently in the top 10% in North America. So I would ask former and current members of the Board of Governors and those with them, please stand. I would also like to recognize Paul Davison, who is the president of the AUCC. I didn't see where Paul... Okay. Paul is with us, and he's a very close friend, and he believes in what we're trying to do. But more importantly, he believes in what the universities are trying to do across Canada. If you imagine that in the next 10 years, something like 4 million Canadians will go through our universities, in addition to the colleges, which adds an additional number. They are the heart of the future of Canada in research, in business, in healthcare, and we believe fundamentally that the universities are a very, very important institution in our state. And among them, I have a special plug for you tonight. We have formed something called the U4. That's essentially smaller East Coast universities. And I have with me tonight Robert Campbell of the MacKay. And Richard Goldblum, recently appointed to the Order of Canada as well. And Ray Ivany was unable to be with us. What we're trying to point out that in Canada we have resources. We have the big urban research universities, but we also have poles of small but very, very powerful universities. And I think StFX and the other universities in the U4 are exactly that. When I originally came to StFX, I didn't know what I was doing. So I took more or less 2 years to formulate my job into 6 words. Go quality, go national, get money. And I think we made progress on all those things, but Rob Prichard teases me about a donation by our good friend Jerry Schwartz. But Rob, as Schwartz said, it's not a donation, it's an investment in Canada. So anyone who needs some investment in Canada, come and see me after this. Now, when I think of StFX from the student point of view, that's what our job is. I really feel that at an undergraduate-focused university, you have to think of it from the student point of view. And I think we're working very, very hard to get 4 things working. Academic excellence first and foremost, exposure to the world, and leadership, and community. And if there is something that we have going for us, it's the community feeling. Rob made reference to the Coady International Institute, which has somewhere around 6,000 graduates working in development organizations around the world. About 140 or 130, I never get it right. This is a reflection of service to society. And in a broad sense, we see that the contribution we can make, everyone can make, the administrators, the faculty, the staff, and so on, is inspiring people to do great things. And you will hear later in the program how inspirational that experience can be. Now, I have to say that it's been a long road and a lot of hard work. And in the last few years, I've required a lot of help and forbearance and patience. And I would say that I am forever grateful to my colleagues in the university, to my friends, to my family, and it's the reason why I'm still smiling after 18 years. But in the overall picture, we are aligning ourselves with the dreams and ambitions of our students. And that is very, very important, just as university presidents are aligning themselves with the dreams and ambitions of their students. But we're also connected, very, very connected, not just to the students, we're connected to the future of Canada. And it's a good thing we are. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. We are going to get to the keynote speaker very shortly. My name is Tim Lang. I'm Vice President at StFX University. I'm just going to take this opportunity to thank our major sponsors for this evening. I'm also the brother of Amanda Lang, so thank you for that reaction. Normally when you have a choice between Amanda Lang and Tim Lang, I get a lot of boos, and that's at home. But first, before thanking our sponsors, I did want to thank all of you here tonight. That StFX is known to have the most passionate and loyal alumni in the nation, but it's also our friends and supporters. Many of you here tonight who know what a great university it is that produces so many leaders in so many fields, including our keynote speaker tonight, the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney. So thank you for being here tonight. I did also want to thank my sister for being here. I really appreciate her doing this. She's got such a busy schedule. She was we had a national dinner with about 700 people in Calgary, and just huge success. And I don't think I've seen Albertans like a Torontonian since, or an Ontarian since Wayne Gretzky. So they were just, it was a love-in for Amanda, so thank you very much. I go to a lot of alumni events across the country, and when alumni find out that she's my sister, there's one question I get asked the most. You know, they know she's attractive and intelligent, so they always ask, "Are you adopted?" But thank you very much, Amanda. A tradition that we started 5 years ago at another national dinner here in Toronto, we actually gave each guest a book, being a Centre of Higher Education. We gave actually the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney's autobiography to each guest. So tonight I'm honored to let you all know as you leave, we're going to give you Amanda's best-selling book, The Power of Why, when you depart tonight. So. Again, I can't thank you all enough. There's so many great people here tonight, and obviously, aside from the dignitaries on the program, I'd want to thank some of the others in the crowd tonight. Former Premier David Peterson is here with us. We've got Senator Trevor Eaton. We've got Lord Conrad Black. We've got the Honourable Angus MacIsaac. And one of my personal favorites, my stepfather, the Honourable Donald MacDonald. So thank you, all of you, for being here. And finally, just our sponsors tonight. I mean, we could not have done this without you. We appreciate your support tonight, and your support goes back to help students and make St. FX greater still. Firstly, our silver sponsor, Tim Sullivan and Bob Shea. Tim Sullivan, a great St. FX grad whose own scholarship and support has helped hundreds and hundreds of students, so we thank Tim Sullivan. Sodexo Foods, always there to support St. FX, has helped create the premier university experience on campus with our students, and because St. FX is also a hotel and hosts AGMs and national conventions for guests. So Sodexo, thank you very much. McGuinness Cooper, another silver sponsor. Many alumni here tonight with McGuinness Cooper. They have been just an incredible supporter of St. FX and have created a major scholarship to enhance experiential learning and global travel within the Frank McKenna Center for Leadership. So thank you, McGuinness Cooper. And of course, Norton Rose, who has always been a great supporter of many worthy causes, and we're so appreciative to have their support here tonight. So many alumni are part of Norton Rose, so many parents that have students are part of Norton Rose, but I will also mention one of their most notable employees is also the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney at Norton Rose. So thank you, Norton Rose. Our gold sponsor tonight is Onyx. Jerry Schwartz could not be here tonight, but as Dr. Riley had mentioned, Jerry Schwartz has been an incredible supporter of St. FX, and the Gerald Schwartz School of Business is fast becoming one of the greatest, best undergraduate business schools in the country, so we thank him for all of his support. Bird Construction has also always been there to support and help St. FX, and Dr. Riley's incredible vision has also been made partially possible by Bird Construction, who has helped make one of the most beautiful, or the most beautiful campus in Canada. So our platinum sponsor, Bird Construction. And a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Agnico Eagle. Always, again, there to support many worthy causes. They just donated $5 million to a northern university in Inuvik, I believe. So, I mean, they're always there for so many worthy causes. Happy to have their support, and I'm especially proud their President and CEO, Sean Boyd, who I believe is here with us tonight. He was actually, in Forbes, listed as one of only 3 Canadians in the top 100 CEOs in the world. So as a Canadian, I think that makes, certainly all of us proud. So thank you, Sean Boyd. And again, the main event is happening soon. Thank you for being here tonight, and I promise you that the next Lang up here will be Amanda, not me. So thank you very much.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce another leader this evening, somebody else who will grace this stage with the X ring on her finger. I keep hosting this dinner, and I keep thinking they'll give me one of those rings. Doesn't that seem right? Yes. Those people did not go to St. FX. All the X-men are like, no, cannot have a ring. The Honourable Lisa Raitt is originally from Cape Breton. She's held the roles as Minister of Natural Resources, Minister of Labour. She is, of course, currently Minister of Transportation. Minister Raitt graduated from St. FX and also holds a master's degree in chemistry, specializing in environmental biochemical toxicology, and as if that's not enough, a law degree from Osgoode Hall. She practiced law in Britain before returning to Canada and later became President and Chief Executive Officer of the Toronto Port Authority, a member of Parliament since 2006, a leading member of the Federal Cabinet, a very talented singer, I can tell you from first-hand knowledge. Please join me in welcoming the Minister of Transportation, Lisa Raitt.
And we know Amanda Lang, of course, for matching perfectly with the backdrop of the St. FX flags right now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's such an honor to be here, but I have to tell you, you're a little quiet tonight. You're so quiet. I feel like I'm in a cabinet meeting. Come on, there's more liberals out there that can laugh. I hear you laughing. Come on, let's hear it. How many X rings in the house tonight? Let's see them. It's great to see you, fellow Severians. You know that the X ring is the second most recognizable ring in the world. Have you heard that before? I've been told that many times. So I'm wondering if I should tell my colleague Pierre Polyev to add it to the 39 pieces of identification that can be used in the Fair Elections Act. What do you think? No? I have to say this evening, I'm very honored. Here we are. Here I am. I am a fierce Cape Brettoner. I'm very proud to be from Whitney Pier. Oh yeah, let's hear Cape Breton. I'm very proud to be from Whitney Pier, Sydney, Nova Scotia. And at the, me too, I hear a me too at the back. And I met someone, we'll get a picture later, a selfie for two. But tonight at the honorary dignitary table, we have two Cape Brettoners, myself and the New Order of Canada, Joe Shannon. Great to see you here tonight, Joe. Very proud of you. And being from Cape Breton, it's a unique opportunity to introduce the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney, because in Cape Breton speak, right is not necessarily a compliment. If you would, oh yeah, you're right smart. Come on, everybody knows Cape Brettoners. You know what we're like. Someone has heard that before. I hear this all the time. Or that's right good. But in this case, we're in the right spot, I have to say. Amanda, thank you very much tonight for the applause for Jim Flaherty. I miss him dearly. It was a great loss for all of us, our cabinet, and our country. But what it has made me realize, and many of us realize, is that we don't celebrate our humanity enough. We talk about our accomplishments and what we've done and how much money we've raised. Our humanity is important too, and I learned that at StFX. So, Prime Minister Mulroney, your family has done an incredible act of goodness in starting the Shoebox Project. And I know Caroline is here tonight, and I'm a very, very proud member. So Caroline is now saying, oh my God, I never told her to say this. But for those of you who don't know what it is, Google it and donate, because it's a wonderful project to make sure that women in shelters have something on Christmas Day. I took part in it last year. It's been an amazing experience. But Prime Minister, it's because of your acts of selflessness that have allowed your family to find ways to add to our humanity. And tonight is about leadership too, ladies and gentlemen. But I would submit, and I'm being a chick here because I am the chick at the table, but that's an okay thing because you need a little bit of balance in life. But I would tell you this, that leadership is more than what we've done, and leadership is more than what we've executed on. It's how we do things, and it's how we relate. And if there's one thing I've learned from Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, is the following, that if everything is very important, then nothing is important. And I say that to my staff every day, and I say that to my children every day as well. The economy is important. We run on it as a party. We want to make sure that we're improving the quality of life of our citizens. That's what we're supposed to do in public office. But what about the quality of lives? Individual, writ small. And that's where tonight's keynote address comes in. Prime Minister Brian Mulroney has focused and has improved the quality of lives. In times of joy, in times of sorrow, in times of celebration, in times of anguish or loss or anxiety, he has picked up the phone and he has called individuals, maybe in this room, maybe somebody you know, maybe a story that you've heard from somebody else, but he has made that call. He has not been afraid. He has had the courage to interface with the human quotient that is so important in leadership. And it's something that we should not forget. You, sir, had an option. You, sir, had an option. You can avoid the emotionality, and you can avoid the intricacies of human frailty, but you chose not to. You reached out to friends, you reached out to foes, you reached out to the lost, you reached out to the recovering. The leadership in the new millennium, ladies and gentlemen, is more than just advertisements, and it's more than just what comes across your desktop. It is interacting with our fellow Canadians on a day-to-day basis. And there's no other person that we can learn from in terms of courage to grieve, courage to advise, courage to comfort than Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, and I'm very happy to welcome him to the stage, and I'm very anxious to hear what he has to tell us about leadership today. Please welcome him.
Well. St. John, New Brunswick. Thank you, Lisa, Minister of Transport, Minister MacKay, my old friend Peter. I started with his dad in Central Nova 31 years ago in that by-election. Wonderful family, wonderful constituency. StFX is now in that constituency. Premier Peterson, my old and great friend with whom we wrestled with some major problems, not always on the same side, but on the big ones we were. And I can tell you tonight, as I see David, that in the great battle for Confederation, no one has made a larger contribution or a better contribution to Canadian unity than the Honourable David Peterson. I read when I came in this program that you have, and it says the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney, 18th Prime Minister, keynote address. But you know that keynote speakers should always think of themselves as the body at an Irish wake. They need you in order to hold the party, but nobody really expects you to say very much. So I'll try and do that tonight. Then I heard Peter MacKay say that there were constituencies open in the country. I should tell you, Peter, that one day after I left office, Mila and I were watching television in Montreal, and one of my predecessors, I won't name him, was in Israel, and they asked him what his solution was for the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, and he said, "I don't have any answer." He said, "I don't even know whether I'm in North, South, East, or West Jerusalem." Well, I said to Mila, "Jesus, this guy's so bad. I'm going to get myself elected as leader of the Conservative Party again, and I'm going to become Prime Minister." There was total silence. So I turned to her and I said, "You hear what I said, honey?" And she said, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Well, what do you think?" She said, "I think it's a wonderful idea. And I know your new wife is really going to love the experience." Well, I was down in Stellarton and New Glasgow on Friday night speaking at a major event. For Peter, a great tribute dinner to him. And I was asked by some of the people there if I really missed being Prime Minister. Is there anything I missed? And I said yes. I was Prime Minister for 9 years, and a lot of things happened, and I did miss something. The truth is, I missed the adulation. I tell you, when I think of those warm, affectionate, supportive editorials in the Toronto Star, and the gloriously supportive commentary every day on the CBC, God, I tell you, it takes me back. Big time. Yeah, you know, the truth of the matter is you shouldn't go back, because I found out that being Prime Minister is sometimes like being CEO of a cemetery. There are lots of people beneath you, but nobody's listening. So, well, in 1984, I was elected Prime Minister on the 4th of September, and there was a big picture of Mila and me on the front page of the New York Times the next day. And the commentary with it said that in becoming Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney today became the most important Mulroney in North American history ever since the Mulroneys began to immigrate to North America in 1822. The next day there was a letter to the editor from a Mr. O'Malley, and he said, "I'm delighted to read about Prime Minister Mulroney. He looks like a fine young man. He may even turn out to be a good Prime Minister. But you say that Mr. Mulroney is the most important Mulroney in history. I just want to tell you that in 1922, Edward P. Mulroney was elected president of the New York State Liquor Control Board. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a hell of a lot more important than being Prime Minister of Canada." Well, I miss as well, as I'm sure David does, I miss as well the gratitude of the voters. It's just overwhelming. I think of it right now and I'm almost in tears. 3 months, well, I'll give you an illustration. 3 months after I left office, a guy goes up to the uniformed RCMP officer on duty at 24 Sussex and says, "I'd like to see Prime Minister Mulroney." The guard says, "Mr. Mulroney's no longer Prime Minister." The guy said, "Oh, okay." So he takes off, and next day, the same guy comes up and says to the same guard, "I'd like to see Prime Minister Mulroney." And he said, but Brian Mulroney is no longer Prime Minister." "Ah, okay." The next day, the same guy comes up and says to the same thing to the same guard, who says, "Sir, I've told you that Brian Mulroney is no longer Prime Minister. Don't you understand that?" The guy says, "Oh, yes, I understand it all right. I just enjoy hearing it." Well, I'm delighted to speak at the StFX National Dinner. This small university in Nova Scotia has long played a disproportionate role in Canadian politics and public policy. For example, as the parliamentarians know, there are 4 senior officers of Parliament: the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the Government in the Senate, and the Leader of the Opposition in the Senate. At one time in the late 1980s, and for an extended period of time, 3 of the 4 senior officers of the Parliament of Canada were StFX graduates. Lowell Murray, Leader of the Government in the Senate; Alan McCacken, Leader of the Opposition in the Senate; and me as Prime Minister of Canada. How good is that for a small place in Nova Scotia? Not to mention great premiers like Frank McKenna and Angus L. MacDonald, and many other great public servants, Liberal, Conservative, NDP, who went to StFX. It's no accident that StFX was named the best primarily undergraduate university in Canada for 5 years in a row in the annual Maclean's Survey of Canadian Universities, As has been pointed out earlier, I apologize to the guys from Mount A. I think you have Peter Mansbridge as your chancellor? That explains it. At the convocation, give Peter my love. Or that it consistently ranks first in alumni support. Dr. Shawn Riley, our distinguished president, has provided brilliant leadership in bringing St. FX to such an impressive position among Canadian institutions of higher learning. And I can tell you that, as you saw earlier and listened earlier to the great tribute from Rob Prichard and others, Shawn Riley has been a genuine and highly impressive leader for higher education in Canada. And Shawn, all Canadians, not just those of us who are privileged to go to St. FX, not just the Atlantic Canadians, all Canadians, because of your commitment to higher education and your devotion to excellence and your promotion of women within the university community, for all of your contributions, we are in your debt, my friend. You are a tremendous leader. And you know, I've often thought and asked myself what it was about St. FX then and now that attracted many of the best and the brightest of successive generations who decided to do their university studies at a residential college in a town in central Nova, far from the bright lights of Montreal or Toronto. Well, for me, and thousands like me, that's just what St. FX represented. Not bright lights, not big cities, but a big opportunity. And we all knew it. For me, arriving at St. FX in the autumn of 1955, I just knew that it opened the door to a wider world. I remember on a Sunday night in Baie-Comeau, the paper mills, as Conrad will remember, the paper mills shut down because the Duplessis government said there should be no work on Sunday. But those maintenance people in the paper mills, including my father, worked on Sunday to make certain that the mills ran again Monday morning. At 1 minute past 12, that's when startup took place. And I used to work as a laborer in the summer, and I worked on Sunday, but I'd be home earlier and I'd wait for my father. And I remember him sitting in that old chair of his, and I told him that, I said, you know, Dad, the Quebec North Shore Paper Company has got a tremendous apprenticeship program where you can become an electrician, plumber, un ferblantier, un chauffeur de camion. Hein? Vous pouvez tout faire avec un programme d'apprentissage qui était probablement, à ce moment-là, probablement le meilleur au Canada. Et c'était réservé à ce moment-là aux enfants des employés de la Québec North Shore. Alors on pouvait fréquenter l'usine tout en travaillant et en obtenant une licence dans une profession quand même assez noble. So I said to my dad, well, you know, I'm going to take advantage of this apprenticeship program. We don't, you know, times are tight here in the family. My father had 2 jobs, held down 2 jobs with 6 kids to try and make it all work. And I said, it's obvious even to me that there's not much money floating around. And he said, sitting on that chair that night, he said, Brian, you're right. He said, look, times are tough. But on the other hand, I think we can make it. But I'm going to tell you something, no matter what. The only way out of a paper mill town is through a university door, and you are going to university. And that is how I wound up at St. FX. And to this day, thank you, Pops. Thanks for everything. So I arrived at St. FX in the autumn of '55, and I knew it opened the door to a wider world. I was quite literally a boy from Baie-Comeau, carrying a cardboard suitcase and the only blazer that I owned. And St. FX took me in. And who did I meet? The friends of a lifetime, mostly from towns and villages in Atlantic Canada and New England states, and a smattering of others from around the world, including central Canada. They were friends from all sides of the political aisle, and I learned then that politics sometimes should end at the water's edge, where friendship begins and endures. At St. FX, from outstanding professors in history and political science, I learned about the power of ideas to transform our country from one century to the next. And I learned that at the end of the day, big ideas are all about leadership. Hillary Pearson is here tonight, Michael Sabia's wife. Her grandfather was Prime Minister Pearson. Now there was a great leader, and there was a man who in 5 years achieved greatness and a litany of achievements that is rarely rivaled by other prime ministers in the history of Canada, Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson. Some years ago, the legendary New York Times columnist Scotty Reston came to have lunch with me at 24 Sussex, the Prime Minister's official residence in Ottawa. After an impressive tour d'horizon, Mr. Reston said, "You know, Prime Minister, for the last 25 years, I have opposed every single policy that your friend Ronald Reagan has ever stood for." And then he added, "And during that same period, Ronald Reagan was twice elected Governor of California and twice elected President of the United States." This self-deprecatory observation, I thought memorable because of its infrequency in the New York Times, was delivered somewhat ruefully, as if Mr. Reston were perplexed by his own admission. But to so wise an observer as Reston, the answer surely should have been clear. It's called leadership, that ineffable and sometimes magical quality that sets some men and women apart so that millions will follow them as they conjure up new visions and invite their countrymen to dream big and exciting dreams. In his seminal work on leadership, James McGregor Burns segregates transactional from transforming leadership. He writes that it is the transforming leader who raises the level of human conduct of both leader and led, who responds to fundamental hopes and expectations, and who may transcend and even seek to reconstruct the political system rather than simply operate within it. You know, many people suggest that great inexorable currents of history themselves and not individuals seal our fate. In my judgment, however, Carlyle was on target when he observed that the right man or woman in the right place at the right time can completely change the course of history. I believe that to be true because I was there to see it happen. In a brilliant address delivered some years ago in Canada, Ted Sorensen, and I think this address was at the behest of David Peterson before the Ontario Liberal Party. Am I right in that, David? It was a long time ago, and I remember it well. And I became very friendly with Ted Sorensen, who was President Kennedy's senior advisor, and he worked as well for President Johnson. So he himself was a skilled observer of powerful leaders. He saw it up close. We worked together Ted and I, on the Mandela File in South Africa before President Mandela was freed, and then after. And he was a marvelous guy. And he said to the Ontario Liberal Party that day, "Once in office, Those who wish to stand up and stand out must leave something enduring behind. They must build new institutions and not new images. They must look to the next generation and not to the next election. They must talk in terms of fundamental values, not merely costs. They must appeal to our hopes as well as our needs, to what we long to be, and to what we know is right. That, he said, is leadership. The impact of significant public decisions is often unclear in the early years. It sometimes takes a considerable period, frequently decades, before the full consequences of an important initiative become apparent. As Reinhold Niebuhr reminded us, nothing worth doing is completed in our lifetime, and therefore we must be saved by hope. And nothing fine or beautiful or good makes any complete sense in an immediate context of history, and therefore we must be saved by faith. It is in this perspective that great and controversial questions of public policy must be considered. That is why my comments tonight in this area apply only to those who led 50 or 100 years ago, and the lessons we have learned from them. In regard to others, my contemporaries and so on, the judgment of Premier Zhou Enlai should apply. When asked in the 1960s about the effects of the French Revolution, he said, "It's too soon to say." Time is the ally of leaders who placed the defense of principle ahead of the pursuit of popularity. And history has little time for the marginal roles played by the carpers and the complainers, and less for their opinions. History tends to focus on the builders, the deciders, the leaders, in education, in healthcare, in business, in politics. It focuses on the leaders because they are the men and women whose contributions have shaped the future of their countries. Jim Flaherty was such a man. Jim Flaherty was a good man and a great man. As Mary McGrory wrote in the Washington Post the day after President Kennedy was killed, Mary wrote, "If you're Irish, you know that you just know that one day the world is going to break your heart." And I think that's what happened to a lot of us with Jim's untimely departure. He deserved to live a long time with his family. Jim Flaherty, among other things, had a favorite quote. And it's one that we all know, and he loved it. And I repeat it in his memory tonight. It's the quote from Teddy Roosevelt, who had courageous leaders in mind when he made this speech at La Sorbonne 75 years ago. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who spends himself in a worthy cause, and who, at the best, knows in the end the triumphs of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who have known neither victory nor defeat. Canada, like other privileged nations, is often extremely resistant to change. Deep and important structural changes are indispensable, however, to maintain a growing economy and to ensure the flourishing of peace and liberty that can only be brought about by a firm expression of political will. As a contemporary observer noted some years ago, in a nation ruled by polls and ratings, where even newspapers hire focus groups to see what kind of news the readers want, we are losing sight of something we should have learned as teenagers. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right. Presidents and prime ministers are not chosen to seek popularity. They are chosen to provide leadership. There are times when the voters must be told not what they want to hear, but what they have to know. And what they have to know is a quotation from the book of Proverbs, inscribed on the Peace Tower in Ottawa. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Leaders must have vision, and they must find the courage to fight for the policies that will give that vision life. Leaders must govern not for easy headlines in 10 days, but for a better Canada in 10 years. And they must be ready to endure the attacks that often accompany profound or controversial change, while they await for the distant and compelling sounds of a verdict that only history and a more reflective nation can render in the fullness of time. Thomas D'Arcy McGee, Jim Flaherty's favorite politician, the most eloquent father of Confederation, in his last speech in the House of Commons before his assassination 146 years ago last week, famously said, "He who seeks after popularity builds upon a shifting sand." Political capital is meant to be spent on great causes for the nation. When considering important matters of policy, I always ask myself one question: is this right for Canada? If it's right for Canada, we proceeded. If not, we did not. I never asked the question, is this popular for me? We proceeded with policies that I think in Canada turned out to make a significant difference. Free trade agreement, NAFTA, la création du Sommet de la Francophonie, the integration of Canada into the Organization of American States, tax reform and the GST, the Acid Rain Treaty, the Arctic Sovereignty Agreement, privatizations, deregulation. This is what we fought for. And they've made a difference. I'm happy to say today, 25 years later, they've made a difference, not because they were conservative policies or liberal policies, but because they were Canadian policies designed to help our country, and I'm happy to think that's exactly what they did. And as for me, these ideas of Canada and how to strengthen our beloved country began all those years ago in a small town called Antigonish on a campus in Nova Scotia called St. Francis Xavier University, where my philosophy was developed, my life was changed, and our ambitions, my ambitions for a magnificent Canada were fashioned and shaped. When I was down with Peter in eastern Nova Scotia the other day, I reminded the audience as well of the requirements of a great country. And it's found in the Old Testament, where it is said that young men have visions and old men dream dreams. And great countries and institutions need a combination of both. Our children and our grandchildren need to understand that Canada was a great and impossible dream. And here we are, soon 150 years later, having built one of the great countries in the world based on fundamental principles that we all can share because our predecessors and our ancestors had the courage to have these visions and these great dreams. And tonight, we share in that dream because StFX was a university created by the sacrifices of farmers and fishermen in eastern Nova Scotia over 150 years ago. And while they were building this university with no money, with students like me, God knows I couldn't contribute a nickel. I mean, they had to contribute to me to allow me to go. And while that was taking place, what did they do? They improbably created something called the Coady Institute, where with no money of themselves, they started to share with developing countries around the world. And that, if you're looking for why I was inspired the way I tried to be on the questions like the great Mandela debate and so on, I learned that at St. FX from the founders of a university who, with nothing themselves, immediately sought to share with others less fortunate. Years ago, and Rob will remember this, years ago, the greatest American jurist never to be named to the Supreme Court of the United States, Mr. Justice Learned Hand, was invited to welcome immigrants to the Lower East Side in America almost 70 years ago. And he decided to tell them about his definition of their citizenship, which was this, he called it the spirit of liberty. And because I've always thought it had such universal reach and impact, I leave you with it tonight, because that is the objective that many of us from St. FX and other universities, Mount A and St. Mary's and the University of Toronto, by and large Canadians, liberals and conservatives and NDP, share common values. That's why last Monday in Quebec, there was an election and Canada won. Because of the common values we have. We may speak different languages, we may have different aspirations, but Canada is such an extraordinary human achievement that Canada, in the crunch, always wins. And Mr. Justice Hand talked about the spirit of liberty. And it applies to Canadians as it does to Americans. There were Catholics and Protestants and Jews from Central and Eastern Europe being inducted as American citizens that day. And he said that the spirit of liberty is the spirit that is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty seeks to understand the minds of other men and other women. The spirit of liberty weighs their interests alongside its own without bias. The spirit of liberty knows that not even a sparrow falls to earth unheeded. And the spirit of liberty is the spirit of him who near 2,000 years ago taught mankind a lesson that it has never quite learned and never quite forgotten, that there may be a kingdom where the least shall be heard and considered side by side with the greatest. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I'm not sure any of you could imagine a less enviable task than coming up here and having to speak now. And so, because the evening has come to a close, I'm going to keep it mercifully brief. I want to thank you all in being here and celebrating excellence and St. FX and Dr. Shawn Riley and the work that this school does and continues to do and will continue to do. We want to thank Taylor Mason, Rob Prichard, the Honorable Peter MacKay, the Honorable Lisa Raitt, and all of you. Thanks again to our sponsors. And I should say that I think all Canadians, the Right Honorable Mr. Mulroney, would say, regardless of what side of the aisle on which they sit, proverbially, are grateful to Pops for pushing you through the door to university. In the true spirit of St. FX and its alumni, the party is not over. So Although the formal proceedings will now come to an end, you are most welcome to stay and enjoy yourselves, as many St. FXers will. Good night.